Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. 12 years strong. We got a great Opposition Territory podcast coming your way this week as we dive into the Atlanta Braves within the NL East. What has this team been doing? What have they not been doing at times during the course of this 2025 season? A very surprising team and rival of the Philadelphia Phillies. Again, here on our Opposition Territory podcast, we have from SB Nation, he is the MLB editor over there, a great friend of the show. Love having him on, Kris Willis. Kris, buddy, thanks so much for joining us this week to talk about this Braves team.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know how enjoyable talking about the Braves are right now, but yeah, thanks for having me. I always appreciate this.
For Phillies fans, this interview might be enjoyable. I don't know. If there's Braves fans watching, bless your soul, with regard to where this season is at. But look, I wanted to dive into the start of the season. Like, I'm talking the beginning of this Braves season, that first week. We're all excited. Baseball has started. And I'm looking at the standings, of course, in the NL East, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, this Braves team has lost 5 games in a row right out of the gate. So very surprising based on, if you listen to this podcast, where our predictions were for what was going to happen in this NL East this coming season, based on talent within every single team within the NL East. It's just so surprising how the Braves started the season, again, losing 5 games in a row right out of the gate. Kris, I'm wondering here, as this team was supposed to be, a contender in the NL East here, how did the start of the first week of this season really kind of set the tone for this Braves 2025 season, in your opinion?
I mean, I think you hit on it. I think it set the tone.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they've been trying to dig themselves out ever since, and just haven't been able to. Anytime they start on the West Coast, it always sends up red flags. Historically, they've not played really well in San Diego, which is where they opened up. Padres a
Right.
pretty good team as well. But I think 2 other things happened right in that week too. They lost Reynaldo Lopez early. Jurickson Profar got suspended. You and I talked earlier in the year about Profar was really their only major acquisition during the offseason.
Yeah.
I don't want to lay all these struggles on him. But it was just like, what's going to happen next? What's happening next? They
Right.
started the season without Spencer Strider, without Ronald Acuna, just and they just, for whatever reason, they have just not been able to put anything together. But yeah, I think you can look back to that first week, and we're still seeing some of the things we saw that first week in terms of performance, and it for whatever reason just has not clicked.
Do you think some of the Braves players over these years, and I'm not necessarily talking about Ronald Acuna because we know what type of talent he is, but other Braves players that performed well and even consistently over the past few years have kind of seen a drop off because perhaps they were really, and this is baseball. We know baseball. We've been watching our whole lives, whether guys get hot at certain point during their career. We know that certain guys get hot and cold during the course of a season, but at certain points in their career, some guys just end up losing it for a few years. They have to get it back. Are we seeing that with some of the talent on this team?
I mean, I think it's a good question. Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson have played well. Acuna since he came
Yeah.
back. Austin Riley's been good, but he's not had that blistering month that you kind of expected from him, and that's kind of
Yeah.
been the last 2 seasons. And I can kind of you can kind of point to a lot of things from last season that have carried over to this season. And I think we all remember 2023 when the Braves just had the unbelievable lineup, tied
Yes.
the major league record for home runs. Just scoring runs was not a problem. But
Right.
now we're a season and a half into that. This offense just has not performed. You've seen, whether it's a change in approach, injuries. Guys like Ozzy Albies have backed up. Michael Harris is has put up some of the worst offensive numbers of any regular. These are guys that they signed to extensions that they're counting on.
Yeah.
And I mean, the results been, it's just this lineup that's not really good. It's top heavy, at the best, and then that bottom of the order is just not performing. And that was one of the staples of that 2023 team. I mean,
Right.
they could
Yeah.
just roll you over with that lineup. And I mean, Drake Baldwin's been a good surprise. Sean Murphy's not been bad either. I mean, he's hitting better than league average in terms of weighted runs created. So the catcher's position's not been bad. That's been a nice tandem there. But you're seeing Marcell Ozuna hasn't done a whole lot this season.
He's been very inconsistent. Ozuna's been very
Battling,
inconsistent.
battling a hip injury, I think, has really sapped his power. But I mean, he carried this team last year offensively,
Yeah.
so it's hard to be overly critical of him. But he's in his walk year, and I'm sure the pressure's mounting, and that's one thing. They fired their hitting coach last year, Kevin Sitzer, and one of the things he said on the way out was he just could not get those guys to stop pressing. And I feel like it's just been a continuation of that because we know this team's talented, but just for whatever reason, I mean, it's like we've seen way too many times runners second and third, nobody out, and the Braves come out of this with no runs.
Yeah.
And I mean, and a lot of that, I just feel like a lot of that's mental. You can't measure stuff like that, but just it's been frustrating. It's frustrating to watch, night in and night out. But I
Yeah.
mean, this is where they're at.
Yep, this is where they're at in the NL East for sure. And we're going to get into whether or not this team can actually make any sort of quote comeback as we wrap up our discussion. But first, I wanted to get into this pitching rotation and just the pitching in general from what we've seen with the Braves here, Kris, because uh, it seems like the Braves missing Charlie Morton at this point, like it's kind of a real thing here. I mean, at the beginning of the season, Charlie Morton, he wasn't performing the best on the mound, and he certainly turned things around here in 2025 for himself. Since returning to the Orioles lineup in May, he now has a a 300 ERA. So I'm wondering, like, do you think it was a mistake to let Charlie Morton walk in the offseason, given some of the pitching issues the Braves staff has here?
I mean, it's proven that way. Coming into the season, look, I don't think enough Braves fans appreciated Charlie Morton. I mean, we remember, 2021, he was outstanding. The last few years, he's run hot and cold. He'd have a start where you give up 3 home runs, 5 runs early, 6 runs early, and get knocked out. But he logged innings 30 starts a season every time he was with Atlanta, and that was something that I think it's easy to take advantage of. The numbers, were always solid, and you're talking about a guy that was penciled in to be your number 3, your number 4 starter.
Right.
I think coming into the season, the Braves thought they had enough pitching depth, and it looked like they did. They knew they were getting Strider back. You had guys like AJ Smith-Shawver who they were counting on to step up and come in. But what's happened is they've been just hit with so many injuries. I mean, if you look at the list of on the IL right now, I mean, you've got Lopez, who we just talked about, Chris Sale, Spencer Schwellenbach, and then Smith-Shawver, who's out with
Yeah.
Tommy John. I mean, that's four of your 5 rotation people
Yeah.
at this point. You got Spencer Strider and Grant Holmes, and then they're just basically piecing this thing together from from there on. And right now they've only got 4 starters on the roster and just pitched a bullpen game over the weekend.
Yeah.
So they're to the point where they don't really have a person to call up. Bryce Elder probably would have already been sent down if they had anybody. They called up a 20-year-old rookie in Didier Fuentes. He probably would have made a spot start. I think he's in line for his 4th start now. He doesn't belong in the majors yet. He's got a good arm, but it's out of necessity at this point. So yeah, Charlie Morton would look really good in this rotation right now if you could hand the ball to him. But I mean, coming in, like I said, I think we were guilty of not appreciating Charlie Morton quite as much. But coming into the season, they thought they had enough starting pitching depth,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just when the injuries piled up, and this is where they're at.
Yeah. I mean, I did want to ask you next, how this starting rotation could inevitably stabilize itself here. I mean, you talk about the injuries, you talk about like the lack of depth, and whether it is calling up someone from AAA, perhaps. I mean, I don't dive into other teams' farm systems. Of course, we dive into the Phillies farm system a decent amount here on this podcast platform, but in terms of really being able to stabilize the starting rotation for the remainder of the season here, if this team has the opportunity, to, one, get healthy perhaps, or bring somebody up. How can it be stabilized? Is that even really possible here?
It's going to be interesting. They've got a top prospect, Hurston Waldrop, who has struggled at AAA. And I mean, if he was pitching anywhere close to what they thought he would be, he'd be in the majors right now. I
He's
think
the
it's
top
been notable.
prospect. Yeah.
He's their
Yeah.
top guy, and I mean, I think he's got like a 13% walk rate at AAA. It's just not. I mean, if like I said, he would be in the things are dire enough now that if he would be in the
Yeah.
majors, and he may be in the next week because they're going to have to add another starter. Um, so I mean, this is one of those situations where the Braves really look like sellers right now, but they
Yeah.
may have to go out and try to trade for a starter just to try to get through the rest of the season. I mean, and
Yeah.
I mean that's crazy to think about, but I mean, Chris Sale, they say he's going to be back. He's on the 60-day IL. It's probably going to be the end of August before he's back throwing. Spencer Schwellenbach, I'm thinking if they're out of the race, I don't think Schwellenbach will pitch anymore this year. He's got a
Yeah.
fracture in his elbow. If they were to climb back in it, then maybe he's back. But I think it makes sense not to. Smith Shawver's already out for the season and will miss part of next season with Tommy John. And Lopez, the prognosis on him was he might be back, he might not. So
Yeah.
again, if they're out of the race, I don't know that you're going to see him at all. So it's not pretty at the moment.
Yeah.
That
It seems
pitching
like a
depth
lost
is.
season. It does. It seems like a lost season. If I'm a Braves fan, I would say actually don't sell at the trade deadline. You need to keep assets for the future. If I'm a Braves fan, I'm saying no. It may just be a lost season here, Kris.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really. I know we're going to talk about that some more in a minute, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's really feeling that way. At
Yeah.
this point, Sale meant so much to them. Seeing him get hurt, I feel like Sale pitched them into the postseason last year.
Right.
We had all these same struggles, but it was like the pitching staff just kind of kept their heads above water
Yeah.
enough to get into the postseason. And to see him get hurt and then Schwellenbach come a couple of weeks later and get hurt behind him, it's just not. It's just hard. It's just going to be really hard for this team to overcome those
Yeah.
those type of losses.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be difficult for sure. And folks, we're getting ready to take a break here. Stick with us because we got a lot of Braves talk coming to you here on this Opposition Territory podcast. But again, want you to head over to SB Nation, MLB, all their coverage. Kris and his crew over there doing a great job. Kris, where can folks find you on the socials out there? I know you're on Blue Sky as well. Let folks know where they can find you online and what you're doing.
Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky and at SB Nation. Blue Sky, and my name's also spell it with a K. So KRIS underscore Willis at Blue Sky. That's the best place to find me.
All right, sounds good. And if you are watching on YouTube, we've got our social media sites here. You can follow us, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter/X, Threads. I'm over on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. And Eric and I are also over on Blue Sky as well. Search out the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show on various social media sites. You'll find us, and head on over to PhiladelphiaSportsTable.com to check out all of our shows as well. If you like and subscribe here, if you're watching on YouTube, we greatly appreciate that. We are going to take a break, but when we get back, got more Braves talk. All right, we are back with our good friend Kris Willis from SB Nation. He's the MLB editor on that fine website. And as we're continuing to talk about the Atlanta Braves here, I mean, it's a tough season, Kris, as we've been talking about before the break here. I do wonder if there is a, quote, bright spot on this team, if there maybe is an individual who isn't getting their due. I want to bring something a little positive to the conversation here. Who has been that one maybe under the radar bit of excitement for the Braves this season, and why? Who's that person?
Well, I mean, Ronald Acuna Jr. is obviously getting him back and getting to watch him every
Yeah.
day, but that's kind of the lazy answer. I mean, he's everybody knows him. He's starting the All-Star game again at home, and I'm expecting him to put on a show. But I mean, I don't know if enough people have talked about Grant Holmes.
Okay.
Holmes is a
Yep.
great story. He's a great story, languished in the minors for many years. Braves brought him up last year more as a reliever, kind of stretched him out at the end. He made some spot starts. He came to spring this year to challenge for a rotation spot. I think they thought they had enough guys that he would probably open in the rotation and then might get bumped to the bullpen when Strider
Yeah.
came back. He's ended up being a very important spot. I mean, he's probably their number 2 guy. Well, he is their number 2 guy now
Right. Yeah.
behind Strider. A lot of strikeouts lately. He's getting 0 run support. It's frustrating. But I mean, if I don't think enough people have really paid attention to the numbers and the innings that he has put up for the Braves. And I mean, to me, he's kind of the unsung hero at this point, if you can have one on a team that's this far under 500. So
Yeah. Well, it leads us now to dun 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 the disappointing aspects of this team. I wanted to flip the coin here just to get your thoughts on who has been kind of the biggest disappointment of this Braves team and season thus far. There's a lot of disappointing aspects and storylines and talent, of course, happening in Atlanta. But what are your thoughts here in terms of what we've been talking about, what we've seen on the mound, what we've seen in the batter's box? What's the most disappointing aspect of this season in terms of talent?
I mean, it's just that they've struggled to score runs. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
crazy thing because we saw the same group in 2023, and it looked like that was never they were never going to have a hard time scoring runs. I mean, you could get away with playing Orlando Arcia at shortstop or something because they just had enough offense everywhere else. I mean, if we're talking individual players, Ozzy Albies worries me. He's battled a lot of injuries. He's struggled, but I think really probably Michael Harris is probably the biggest eye opener. I think a
Okay.
lot of people a lot of people thought that, a 2020 season, a 30, if we wanted to dream big, maybe a 30-30 season was possible from him. He had been taking steps forward also for a while. There's always been a little bit of a question mark about his plate discipline. This year, I think he's gone 150 something at bats right now that he hasn't
Yeah.
walked. He's just swinging at everything. I think they were counting on him to grow into a guy maybe that's hitting second in this lineup behind Acuna. And he's still Gold Glove caliber defensive player, but the offense is just cratered. And I mean, he's another one. I'm sure he's working as hard as he can to get out of it, and he's pressing and like most of these guys in this lineup are. But I would say his offensive performance has probably been the biggest disappointment from a Brave
Yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah.
Biggest surprise, because I mean this is a guy they locked up, and I mean we celebrated it seemed like they were trading for guys and they'd sign them to a team friendly deal and everything. But you're seeing the reverse side of that. It's when you lock guys up like that,
Yeah.
you better hope that they're going to perform, all the way through those contracts,
Absolutely.
and that's because it saps your flexibility. I think they're right under the tax right now. I mean, it's hard to trust public numbers and stuff, but that's another thing. And I know we're going to talk about the rest of the season in a minute, but it's at the point now where maybe they don't need to buy at the trade deadline. They need to reset their tax penalties because they've been in a tax team the last couple of years. And
Yeah.
if it's a lost season, and then try to address some of these issues during the offseason.
Yeah, I saw a stat and I thought it was interesting, Chris. Just wanted to bounce it off of you how the Braves are worse hitters on the road. And it's pretty drastic because at home, as a team, the splits are 257, 325, and 398. Away, the splits are 233, 312, and 372. I just it's really bizarre too because despite the lower slugging, it's not a home run problem from my understanding necessarily. So it's so bizarre, what we're seeing this season. I feel like this Braves team they're an anomaly in a way. If I'm taking something away from this conversation, we can all talk about how certain baseball teams and players, they're good, they're bad, they're just in a cold rut right now, or they're hot, they're on fire. With this Braves team, I just feel like they're an anomaly at this point. Like you
Yeah.
said, much of the same players from 2023. And it's not, they just don't have a cohesive identity here.
Yeah, and I mean, and then going back to something else that I meant to mention when we was talking about Charlie Morton, and I don't know how you measure this stuff. I mean, you hear it all the time, but we saw them, we saw them recent years. We've saw Freddie Freeman walk out, and they replaced him with
Yeah,
Matt Olson. You saw Dansby Swanson leave. Those were good clubhouse guys. They had guys like that, and then this year Travis Darno left. They didn't pick the option up of him. Drake Baldwin had a lot to do with that. Charlie Morton was another veteran. I mean, there's leaders in that clubhouse.
yeah,
But I don't want to undersell, how much guys like Darno, Morton meant to a lot of those younger players and stuff. And just for whatever, again, I don't think they've tuned out Brian Snicker. They do have a new hitting coach. There's some signs that they're trying to change their approach. I don't know. I don't know if that was the best. I thought firing Kevin Seitzer was a little bit of a knee jerk reaction. Um, but I think this team was built to slug, and I think they've tried to be a little bit of something else this
yeah,
time. They've tried to zig a little bit, and it's just not worked to the
yeah.
level that it needs to be. And how do you fix that? I don't. If
Exactly.
I had the answer, I wouldn't be sitting here. That's for
Right,
sure.
exactly.
So
No silver bullet for the Atlanta Braves at this point. But buddy, before I let you leave, as of us recording this here, and then the final topic we wanted to get into, the Braves have a record of 39-50. They're sitting fourth in the NL East. And I guess the real question is, can this team get to a point where they may be competitive in the NL East this season, like many of us thought they would be? I don't know. What are your thoughts here? It seems like probably not, but who knows? This is
I mean,
baseball. Weird things
it's
happen.
you have to, I want to put the caveat out there. I mean, we lived through 2021.
Yeah,
Ronald blows his knee out. Ronald Acuna blows his kney out. Ian Anderson came up with a shoulder injury on that same weekend. They
right.
were below 500. I may have written that this season was over, and we obviously know what happened after that. They caught fire, ran straight through the postseason, won a World Series. But I think it's different with this team now. The rotation injuries. I mean, the Braves could go trade for a starter, and they probably need two at least at this
Yeah,
point. And that's just not. I don't think they have the system to go out and get those type of guys. I don't know that those guys are going to be available anyway. You see a guy like Sandy Alcantara, but there's going to be a ton of people wanting him, and there's going to be a lot of and there's some questions with him too. The stuff's there though, and I just don't know if they've got it. I don't know if they can overcome this many losses. So
yeah,
and more, it just feels like a lost season, and it could be an anomaly. I mean, we could be sitting here this time next year and talking about how this team looks complete. It's the same group of guys, but it looks completely different. But
yeah,
there are enough concerns now. This has been a year over a season and a half now where this offense just has not clicked the way it did in 2023. Some of these guys are locked up on long-term deals. It's going to be really interesting and really challenging, I think, to kind of turn this thing around and get it headed back in the right direction.
yeah. Well, this team definitely feels like the Philadelphia 76ers in a lot of ways. I'll tell you, folks, if you follow basketball, they definitely feel like a Sixers team. But again, we appreciate you, Kris, jumping on board here on our Opposition Territory podcast this week. Again, folks, Kris Willis from SB Nation. Again, let folks know where they can follow you online, my friend.
Best place to find me is at Blue Sky. I'm not on the socials like I was at one time, but yeah, that's a good place. Reach out, say hi. I love interacting with people and stuff, and it's always a good time coming on with you. I appreciate you having me.
Always fun, my friend. Looking forward to talking to you at some point down the road. If you're willing to come back, I'd love to have you.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Just let me know. Maybe something around the postseason. We'll talk about the playoff baseball.
Sounds good, my friend.